Man, everybody got AIDS and shit, and it's Showgirls on Gentlemen Prefer Cinephiles.
I used to love Doggy Chow.
Did you?
Yes.
Well, I'm Charlie.
I'm Erynn.
And as you might have guessed...
We're here to talk about the best film of all time.
Paul Verhoeven's magnum opus, unironically, Showgirls.
Showgirls is so good, and if you think it's bad, you're gonna change your mind by the end of this podcast.
Well, I just say keep an open mind and go watch it, and know that most of it's supposed to be funny.
Honestly, watch it twice. Even if you hated it the first time, watch it twice, because you get so much out of it watching it twice. Like, you realize how good it is when you watch it twice. Yeah,
Film's so good. Some film's so nice you watch it twice.
So, the first talking point. I think it's a good film disguised as a bad film. And I think that's deliberate.
Yeah, I think it's making fun of bad films.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's kind of like if somebody tried to make The Room on purpose.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I think the bad filmness is funny in a way that better allows you to think about the themes that are being presented to you.
Yes.
So I think it's a really interesting decision for Paul Vanderhoeven to direct people.
Say Vanderhoeven?
Did I say Vanderhoeven? Oops. I'm sorry, Paul.
Paul Verhoeven.
Sorry, Paul Verhoeven. I think it was a really interesting choice for Paul Verhoeven to direct the actors and everybody the way that they are. Because, you know what? I'm upset that people didn't take calls from Elizabeth Berkley after this film, because she's obviously directed to act the way she does. Yeah. I don't think it's just, wow, what a terrible actor. You know, like, I think she just took direction, and it's just...
Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Elizabeth Berkley is the best actress.
I'm so excited!
You know, I think she's not great. Paul Verhoeven knows how to take, like, bad actors and actresses and mold them to be functional in his types of movies. It's like when you watch Starship Troopers and, like, you know, they got Casper Van Dien and like Neil Patrick Harris from the time. Like they're not really Denise Richards. You know, they're like your average soap opera teenage stars, and they're doing like a really cheesy job. But you know that's like a part of the point of the movie, and he knows how to get them to add a little depth to the initially cheesy performances.
Yes. So, Charlie, would you like to go a little bit in depth on the second point?
So, Paul Verhoeven is a master of satire. And satire is a form of critique that is surprisingly hard for people to grasp.
Well, because, I mean, satire is so thickly layered under so much that it's okay. It's pretty easy to read satire as being, like, just... It's easy to misunderstand satire, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when you're using something to critique itself, it can be difficult for people to understand, like, the sort of reflective nature of that, and they sort of just see it as what it is on the surface, instead of thinking more about what's going on underneath it and what kind of critiques are going on with the use of purposeful artifice and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, true, I agree. So, some of the themes that he touches on in terms of this satire is the American Dream, The Star is Born, and things like Las Vegas. So let's just go kind of through all of those. So, The Star is Born. Now, this is something that you get out of rewatching it, which is why I wanted to discuss it, is discuss rewatching, because I think it's very important and vital to Showgirls. So, you have this in... Okay, spoiler alert also, just in case. Okay, so with The Star is Born, you have Crystal Connors at the beginning, and she's kind of the Las Vegas it girl in terms of Showgirls. She's in the best show on the Strip. She's in Goddess, blah blah blah. There's a scene where she's introduced where it's the man who runs the hotel where the show is happening, and he's talking to her, and he's talking to a crowd of people with her, and he says, you know, Crystal Connors is just everything that Las Vegas is about. She's fun, she's exciting, she's great. We could have gotten anybody for this show, but we chose Crystal. And Crystal's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm great. Oh my god, I'm Crystal. I love doggy chow. And then later on in the film, this is juxtaposed when Nomi, who's played by Elizabeth Berkley, kind of raises through the ranks. She sabotages Crystal Connors and pushes her down some stairs so that she breaks her leg. She's Crystal Connors' understudy, and therefore she becomes the lead in Goddess. Then, so you have another scene later on in the narrative, like far after a ton of stuff has happened, so you don't quite remember the beginning where the same thing happened with Crystal Connors, but Nomi's in place where Crystal Connors was. She's wearing the same exact thing Crystal Connors is wearing, and you have the same man saying the exact same things about Nomi. Like, oh my god, she's exactly what Las Vegas is about. She's fun, she's exciting. Like, we could have gotten anyone for this show, but we chose Nomi. And I think that's really interesting to touch on in terms of The Star is Born, because I think in our modern society, a lot of people view themselves as special and like the only, like, and I think it's important to feel special. You are special out there. You're great. But I do think everyone is replaceable, and it really indulges in that. I think it's just a hard fact of life that everyone can be replaced. And this film, like, no holds barred, deals with that, and that's amazing. Especially in terms of entertainment and the entertainment industry. Everyone is replaceable. It's great. It's solid. What would you like to say about that, Charlie?
So that touches a lot on the cyclical nature of the story, which I think is a very interesting analytical part of the story. Is that it's sort of got like a 6-act structure, where the first half of the movie is like the 3-act rising up sort of storyline that you see with a lot of Hollywood stories, only to be followed up by a second rise to another level, and both times, like from the very beginning of the film, Nomi gets tricked out of her money and her luggage, and she just gets horribly exploited by every terrible man that she meets, but she keeps going at it as if she's going to succeed ultimately and gain some kind of higher level of knowledge or of status, where there is nothing because it's all empty, and that's sort of the point, you know, where the cycles just continue to occur until you break the cycle.
And then even then you have it layered because Nomi is the understudy of Crystal Connors. She sabotaged Crystal Connors. You find out in the last seconds of the film that Crystal Connors, to get her place in the show, she sabotaged the lead. And then you have, at the party right after Nomi gets the lead, there's this girl who sabotages another dancer, and then she asks Nomi if she could be her understudy. And so it's just so layered with this cyclic nature of how entertainment works. And it's just remarkably done. And you have that also in a lot of the other things, in a lot of the other situations. You have a man that Nomi meets at a club, and they both get kicked out and arrested for like starting a fight or something. And so he is approaching her, and he's like, "Oh, Nomi, you're so special. You're so different. You're such a great dancer. I wrote this dance piece for you. Blah 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 blah." And so Nomi, like, Nomi thinks he's special, and she thinks he's great, and she thinks, like, she's the only person in the sky's eye. So when she gets the huge part in Goddess, she goes to his house to find another just girl he's with who is a great dancer, and who he likes a lot, and who is super talented, and who is great, and who's the best, and who he wrote a dance part for. And so it's really interesting how the repetitive nature of the narrative is it's not just in the specific narrative rise to fame. It's in a lot of the other elements as well.
The movie is largely about the American dream and the dream of stardom, which are kind of intertwined in a way culturally, where it's a complete dismantling of this idea, you know, where everyone is trying really hard to attain something all the time, and everyone either gets burnt out, mutilated, raped, broken in these different ways. Everyone is never on top as much as they try to be on top. Even the people that are in charge of everything, these producers, sleazeballs that control all of these women and stuff, they don't really have any legitimate power outside of, these casinos that they create these shows for, and they don't really care about anything, and they're incredibly empty and disgusting, vacuous trash bins of human beings. And the whole point seems to be that it's more important to try to reclaim yourself and to attain this amount of aggression for yourself, so you can, go off on your own and just not care about it anymore. So you can just take back yourself, because that's all you have. Because you're not going to be able to take all of that stuff. They always show you in these movies there's a star and they rise to the top because they deserve it, because they're the best, because they deserve it. And everyone is fed this idea that if you work really hard and you believe it and you continue to do this, then it's going to happen. But so often people do all the right things, and they have this confidence and they go for it and they work really hard, and then they just fail, or they get taken advantage of by people, because you can't control that sort of thing when it comes to a system like Hollywood or Vegas or the way that the economy works in America. You can't control it, because it in itself is just a regurgitating process. It's just another cycle where, things go up and down. So to me, this whole idea of the American dream is completely capsulized inside this larger-than-life crazy town that is Las Vegas in the movie. This mythical Las Vegas that is largely meant to be a parody of Hollywood itself, but also on a larger scale the idea of Hollywood, where it's this city of giant flashing lights and of these great glass buildings, and everything's exciting and fun, but then inside it's just completely hollow and empty. It's just full of these gears that continue to turn and just churn people up and spit them out. And so, to me, the movie always speaks so hard like that, because it's so funny and ridiculous. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so over the top. But then by the end, you just feel heartbroken, because everyone that you knew in the movie, even if you laughed at them or with them, you still grew to know them in some ways, and it's horrible to see them debased to their limits.
Yes, it's 100% true. And to kind of wrap up the idea of the value of rewatching, it's almost like The Hateful Eight when you rewatch. Because, there's this one scene, there's one thing in particular. So, spoiler alert for The Hateful Eight. Kurt Russell gets its arm ripped off later on in the narrative. And at the very beginning, they get ripped out of the carriage because there's somebody punches somebody and they both fall out. And then Kurt Russell's like, gosh, you almost ripped my arm off. And there's little things like that where when you rewatch, you're like, oh my god, and I missed that. With this, Crystal Connors gets pushed down the stairs. You have everybody always saying, better watch the stairs, make sure nobody falls down the stairs, blah, 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 blah. Isn't there another thing that I forgot? There's another one, I think. There's a couple other ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. It's almost like an Edgar Wright movie with the way that people, make these offhanded comments that come true later. Especially Kyle MacLachlan's character, I find, and a lot of the stuff that Crystal Connors says kind of happens because she's wise to it all. She knows what's really going on there, and I think that it is important to rewatch it like that, but just to keep an eye out the first time anyway, to just pay attention to the warnings that people say, or when people say what their dreams are, and see the irony of when it's almost like a genie's wish where it's like you get what you wanted, but it isn't what you wanted.
Yeah, and I almost see it as replicating life in a closer way than a lot of other films, because I kind of view life in terms of the universe always giving you signals as to what you should be aware of, what you should look out for, what you should kind of know. So I thought that was really interesting in terms of Showgirls, but that's personally what I liked a lot. So you have one more point, Charlie, to hit on. What is it?
So this one is just called Artifice and Genuine. So the movie teeters on this line between showing genuine things and showing artificial things, and that's part of the problem with a lot of the mass marketing type deal, like the way that everyone is a commodity nowadays, where everything is a branding deal and everything is a something to sell something else. You know what I mean? So it's like this idea that people become artificial or put on like an artificial face, and like everything has a sort of artifice over it, and especially movies have a very artificial quality to them a lot of the times. And this one's got a very purposeful artifice in terms of the production design and the acting, where there's this barrier where you're supposed to identify the artificial part, and then you can see like the genuine emotions that happen underneath it. It's kind of Brechtian, where you're supposed to you see that something is wrong or something is off, and then it allows you to better connect with the stuff that is more genuine or is pointing towards something darker.
Yeah, you're supposed to be pulled out of it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, they just ended up getting pulled out of it, and we're like, I got pulled out of it. This is silly.
This is dumb.
Laugh, laugh, laugh. And it's like, you're supposed to laugh, but then you're supposed to kind of think about it afterwards. But I get why some people think that it's just like a dumb movie and that it's just for fun.
It's what John Waters talks about. It's like nobody likes a bore on a soapbox. Like, obviously Paul Verhoeven could have sat down and made like a gritty, really like terrible, like feel bad film about how terrible all of these things are, and it would have been vastly more ineffective. But he wedges all of this social critique in a silly bad film that is going to be viewed as non-confrontational or like safe, I suppose.
Yeah. That's kind of his trademark with satire, like from RoboCop with its really heavy use of irony and the use of propaganda in the news, to Starship Troopers being basically an old-fashioned Nazi propaganda film, but instead making fun of American militarism and nationalism and our own soap opera style TV shows. He's always going after something that people can identify with. Like, that's why he's so famous for his action movies, because, like you said, it's safe. An action movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll go see that, but then it's got all this stuff about questioning reality and questioning authority and questioning everything that people tell you and wondering what's real or what isn't real. So, like, he just sort of, like when you wrap a pill for your dog around in, like, bologna or something, it's secretly being fed to you in a way that feels safer for you to enjoy, but then there is more to it inside ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. 110%. And I mean, not to keep comparing it to The Hateful Eight. Oh my gosh. Not to keep comparing it to The Hateful Eight. But, oh my gosh, I forgot it. It was such a good point. I'm so upset. Life will never be the same. Oh my god, let me think on this a second. Let me think on this for a second.
Right.
Like The Hateful Eight. Oh, okay, I remember. And a lot of people do consider Showgirls a very misogynist in the way it kind of depicts women. Like, there's a lot of boobs in it. Like, there's a lot of nudity. It's a lot of strip clubs. There's a lot of people talking down to women. But in a similar way to The Hateful Eight with racism and sexism, as we touched on in the Tarantino Ranked episode, it just because it's indulging in the horrors of those things. And that doesn't mean it's inherently that thing.
If anything, I feel like Showgirls does more to desexualize the naked female body, because, part of that artificial satire part, anything that is meant to be directly sexual in the movie. When people have sex or grind on each other, it's the least graceful thing you've ever seen in your life.
It's true.
But that's like, it's by design. It's not so. It's because everything is so artificial. When people try to genuinely have sex, it's the tackiest, most over the top performative thing you've ever seen.
If you think about it for a second, it's so weird.
People laugh because they're like, "Ha, what's going on? This is supposed to be sexy." It's like, no, you're supposed to laugh and be like, why is this happening?
Well, yeah, and I'm consistently in development for burlesque shows. And like one thing about being sexy is that if it's real, it's awkward. Like, it's weird. You know? Like think about the Metropolis dance, like the Whore of Babylon dance in Metropolis. Like when you're looking for, like, it's sexy, but it's just weird. Like it's just, there's something about, I don't know. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know if Showgirls really touches upon that, but
It's context.
I think it does. Like that sex scene between
yeah, but I don't think it looks real at all. I think it's completely artificial.
I think it's more. I think we'd be surprised if we saw what normal, real sex looked like. We can cut all this part out, but yeah, I think we'd be.
So since you're cutting this part out, Erynn, you had this discussion with me, and you were talking about how sexiness is a context.
Yeah, sex. Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, Showgirls really touches on how sexiness is a context. Yeah, that's 100% it. That's 100% it. That's 100% yes. That's it. That's my good point.
So, what do you guys think of Showgirls? Have any of you ever seen it? What do you think of it? Is it just a fun time? Do you get drunk and watch it with your friends?
Since you were a child and just needed to be exposed to the human body?
I know a lot of people were exposed to it in the old Blockbuster days or the HBO days, you know what I mean? Like some of people's first experiences with hardcore NC-17 stuff. And I feel sorry for you because you probably messed up because it's not supposed to be taken at face value.
Pretty horrifying, actually. Well, also, like, I think it's pretty interesting. Fun fact before we fully leave an outro, it was the first NC-17 film to get a wide release.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Nationwide.
Yes.
And there was much pissing and wailing.
There was much. Yep.
So, where can they find us, Erynn?
They can find us at facebook.com/gentlemenforcinephiles.
YouTube at Gentlemen Prefer Cinephiles.
Instagram, Gentlemen for Cinephiles.
GentlemenPreferCinephiles.net.
And iTunes.
Oh boy.
Gentlemen for Cinephiles, yes. Are you going to go watch Showgirls now? You better.
You better. You can find it for free on websites really easily, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, okay?
Okay, really quick. I know we just outroed the episode, but a little extra scene. My favorite thing about Showgirls is how, like, intense all the interactions are. Like, anytime Nomi has a disagreement with anyone, she's just like, I hate you! Or she'll just, like, shout an obscenity at them and she'll, like, run off screen. And that's, like, that's how every single scene ends. And I just think it's hilarious and I love it. They're just like, oh, you're dumb, or oh, I hate you, and then they'll just run away, and then it'll cut to the next scene, and I'm like, cool, that's fine. I'll live. It's good.
And I live for you, audience.
Goodbye.
We love you.